You have found the Lines Injury Podcast for NFL Week number 6. My name is Steven Andress, managing editor at thelines.com, joined each and every week by our injury expert, Will Carroll, at Injury Expert on Twitter. Will, more than 20 years experience covering injuries across a variety of different professional sports leagues. His new book, The Science of Football, is available everywhere books are sold. Will, let's get into this because I've seen a couple people talking about it this week in week number 6. It is a busy injury report, so much so that it's been difficult to find spots to bet this week because of just the uncertainty of who's actually going to be on the field. And we begin with the San Francisco 49ers, who have had the injuries pile up here, specifically on defense. All 4 of their defensive linemen are on the injury report. Samson Ebukam, the defensive end, is the only one that returned to practice on a limited basis Thursday. We await to see his status for Friday, along with Arik Armstead, Nick Bosa. They look like they're probably not going to play. Javon Kinlaw is not looking good. Emmanuel Mosley has a torn ACL. Jimmy Ward has a broken hand. He's not going to play. So
yeah, it's so far down the depth chart. Now they haven't stacked up. So they're usually at the number 2 guy for most of those positions, but there's always a drop off. You know, people in the NFL love saying next man up. Well, there's a reason there's a depth chart. There's a reason you have practice all year long to figure out who your best player is. So even in those questions where there's competition, there's a drop off. When you lose a Nick Bosa, and I don't see him playing effectively this week, I'd be surprised if they didn't hold him out. It's just impossible to go through. Here's the other thing that always worries me when you see this many injuries. Now, the 49ers have a great medical staff. There hasn't been a whole lot of change in the coaching. Sometimes you worry about that because then, you know, a new coach comes in, even a new position coach, and things change. They do things differently. I especially look at that when it's strength and conditioning. There weren't significant changes over there. Some people got hired, some people switched out, but nothing huge and certainly nothing concentrated. If you see a new running backs coach, defensive backs coach, you see some changes there. You think, oh, A equals B. In this situation, you don't really see that. What I worry about is what I call the death spiral, which is there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so many athletic trainers. Even if you're getting help from physical therapists, massagists, or masseuses, I guess it would be, even if you're bringing in doctors for more than their normal time, there's only so many hours in the day. So if you have that many injured players that you're having to do treatment on, in situations like Ward with the broken hand, there's not a lot you have to do on that. You just have to schedule his next X-ray. But when you're having to do treatment, when you're having to try to get people back, when you're having to work on Bosa day after day after day, night after night after night, you just can't do the preventative work. You can't do the things you need to do to keep the other guys going. And as good as their performance staff is, and it's great, there's only so many hours in the day. You can't invent more. The only way you do that is bring in more staff, and that's often difficult just to get people integrated in there. So I'm very worried about the 49ers. I think overall, we've seen more injuries, not in a crazy number, not in some sort of way that says, oh, something's changed. We're seeing more foot injuries. We're seeing more knee injuries. Certainly concussions are actually down this year, largely because of the preseason. But I think what we're seeing is that pattern I told you about at the start of the season, is that the lack of preseason play has stretched out the injuries. We're going to see the midpoint come. I thought it was going to be week 6, where we are right now. I think it could be to the midpoint of the season, which means we're likely to see more late season injuries as well. And those are the ones that can stack into the playoffs. If you happen to have, a 6-week injury, it's very different if it happens in week 1 or 2 than if it happens in week 15 or 16.
So just a quick follow-up on this before we get to the long list of injury updates that we have rolling in here as we record on Friday. This 49ers team, this isn't new for them. This is now going to be the 6th straight year probably that Kyle Shanahan has ranked top 10 in most injuries or most lost minutes from starters, et cetera. This has happened every single year under his regime. But you mentioned the different types of injuries we're seeing right now. So is this really just bad luck? I mean, can it be that simple?
It can. When you take a look at injuries, I don't like to look at 1 year. 1 year can be absolutely luck. When you're looking at 1 year injuries, what I look for is whether there's any pattern to it. Is it a bunch of hamstring strains? Is it a bunch of back injuries? Is it a bunch of shoulder injuries? You don't see that. It's a wrist here. There's
Bosa, groin, injuries. Armstead, foot and ankle, Ebukam, Achilles strain, Kinlaw, knee injury, Mosley, broken hand, ACL for Mosley ACL, and a broken hand for Jimmy Ward. So it's right. A bunch of different things here.
Yeah. So there's no clear pattern there. So, especially with things with Bosa, we kind of saw it happen. Broken hand, ACLs, those happen. There's not a lot you can do in game or even in season to prevent those. There are certainly ACL prevention or reduction programs, we should call them. But no, there's nothing. What you worry about is when you see over years and years. I remember you and I talking about the Colts several years back, and they're terrible. They're bad at managing injuries. Part of that is they have a tendency to bring in risky players. They have a tendency to draft smaller players who are speedier. It's just a preference. But overall, I don't think they've been higher than 14th or 15th in the last decade or so, and often at 30, 31, 32. I know over a decade they were the 31st worst. Only the Jags were worse. So I look at the consistency. And the Niners tend to be really good. So is this a little bit of luck balancing? Is this just traumatic? I would worry much more. But that doesn't help you in the now. They've got to get some defensive players, or they've got to keep that defense off the field with some longer drives, which they haven't been able to do either.
49ers 5.5-point road favorites at Atlanta. It isn't a cross-country trip because they do what they like to do, stay at the Greenbrier this week to stay on that closer to East Coast time. But this was a bet for me. You can hear the reasons why on the Megapod on our YouTube channel. Long story short, a lot of injuries for the Niners defense. Yeah. I don't think this is the same defense that they're trotting out there this week that they have the past few weeks where they've been elite and had all of this talent on the field. Let's move on here to a bunch of different other injuries that are popping up. Jonathan Taylor is back for the Indianapolis Colts. You mentioned him. So you mentioned the Colts, I should say. So let's get to him. Obviously that offensive line is a train wreck. Ryan Kelly, the center, has a hip issue as well, but Jonathan Taylor does look like he's going to be back this week.
It does, yeah. So if he's back, that certainly helps the team. But Matt Ryan has to hold on to the ball. I think with Taylor, that long week helped him as much as the short week hurt him. You often hear that from players. So I'd expect him to be back. The question is, with Nyheim Hines likely to be out, haven't heard whether he made any progress on Friday with the concussion protocol. Everybody around the league post Tua is being really, really conservative with concussion times. Shaq Leonard out again, and we learned a little bit more about that it's the broken nose that's the problem. He had a very severe broken nose, which required some pretty significant intervention. So he might be out even longer than that, concussion / nose thing would make you think initially. But with Taylor, I think they'll probably have him on a bit of a pitch count. Philip Lindsay was reasonably good. They'll have to just find a way to get that offensive line working because without it, Taylor's not going to matter.
It was an ankle for Taylor. We have a couple other running back injuries as well. The Colts, by the way, less than a field goal favorite against the Jacksonville Jaguars after they got just annihilated by Jacksonville a few weeks ago, albeit without their top two receivers in that game. James Conner ruled out for the Arizona Cardinals. They are a small favorite at Seattle this week. This sounds like a similar situation, what we talked about the last few weeks with Alvin Kamara with the rib injury. Yep. Same or different?
Similar. Okay. I've heard that he does actually have a broken rib. They just don't, which doesn't matter. Bruised ribs, broken ribs, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's a pain tolerance issue. You worry about it if it's not stable, if that thing's out of line, that's really problematic. I don't think that's the case here. But if it's kind of unstable, it can move. The ribs are there to protect internal organs, and football is kind of designed to tear those up. So you don't want to have any risk with that. Plus, it's exceptionally painful. The body's wired in a way that, rib injuries, when you have one, it's designed to make you curl up and not do anything until you're healthy. So I don't think he's going to be able to go. That puts Benjamin out up front, and he was pretty solid last week. So I don't think it really changes a lot of things for me when I'm taking a look at this game and the numbers we've seen on it. Let's face it, that team comes down to Kyler Murray and him being able to make plays. And the team gets DeAndre Hopkins back next week. So I think things are trending up for them.
The thing about Benjamin is that he's not very big. He's 5'9", 207. They have a rookie that will now rotate in alongside of him in the backfield in Keontae Ingram, who is 215 pounds, a late round pick out of USC. So for me, that might, against a defense that's really poor, and also not just James Conner, Darrell Williams is out as well. So it really is Benjamin and Ingram rotating in here. Maybe check those Keontae Ingram anytime touchdown props. He might be kind of forgotten here by the books a little bit, considering that he is the bigger back in this offense against a bottom of the barrel defense this week.
Let me warn you a little bit here. I agree with you in general on that. With Ingram, he is the bigger back, but he's not the more powerful back.
Okay.
And I don't have any insight into, what are they practicing? Who's going to get the ball? What's the preference from Cliff Kingsbury? A lot of times you'll see, those roles. We talked about Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Hines is not going to become the number one back. You just can't go into that role. We often saw Bill Belichick have a big back and a small back, James White, one of those types. And so this isn't exactly that. Some of those smaller guys are just, low center of gravity, really big legs kind of guys. And some of them are really those scat back pass catcher kind of guys. So I don't have a good read on what they're going to do in Arizona because we didn't get a good read on it last week.
For sure. As we sit here right now, Benjamin minus 110 to score a touchdown. Keontae Ingram plus 265 anytime touchdown.
Some more. A nice one.
Yeah, not bad price there with considering the lack of depth anywhere left on that chart. Cooper Kupp questionable for week 6 now with a foot injury.
Don't worry about that one.
You're not worried about this one at all.
This one. Yeah, he's got a sore foot. Probably got stepped on. He takes a lot of hits. He does a lot of blocking. I think that's one of the things that few people understand about his game. He is a physical guy. For one of the best receivers in the game, a guy who could kind of slack off sometimes. He's not that kind of guy. So he takes a little more physical abuse than normal. But with Kupp, there's a couple others that were questionable in LA, but I don't think Kupp's in any danger of not playing or having it affect him.
The Rams are close to double-digit favorites in this game. I think it's come down a little bit off that 10 from when we were recording this morning. No, still 10s across the board here with Carolina firing their coach and trying to figure out if they can be competitive. P.J. Walker, the quarterback this week, who our senior writer Mo Nawar described as probably shouldn't even be in the NFL with his talent level compared to the rest of the quarterbacks. So maybe a bit of an exaggeration there, but it's not an upgrade over Baker Mayfield, who is already the worst quarterback statistically in the league so far this year. So don't just assume that PJ Walker is going to be an upgrade here. The other aspect of this game to keep an eye on is it's not injury related, Will, but Cam Akers has been ruled out. Sean McVay said he's going to be away from the team for personal reasons. So it'll be Darrell Henderson now. But the guy that I want to touch on here is a guy who's on IR, who should be coming back in the next week or two here, who could factor in, who McVay was talking up a lot in the preseason, Kieran Williams, who's on IR with a high ankle sprain, I believe. That's an injury that you really need to take time for a running back, right? With all the movement they do and all the running and explosiveness required, the high ankle sprain is one that really hurts the running back, maybe more than some other positions.
Exactly. And Williams did look good. The high ankle sprain, I'm a little worried about this one because it was fairly severe enough to put him on the IR. He was a guy who was, biting at the edges, and with all the uncertainty about who was going to be the number one, he again is not a guy who's going to be a high run. He's not that big. I don't even think he's 200 pounds. He's not super blazing fast or one of those, James White types like I just mentioned. But this is a situation where he does offer something different. And let's face it, that Rams offense needs something different right now. So I do worry about that high ankle sprain. We're going to talk about it more with quarterbacks. But with running backs, if you can't cut, you can't play. Even if you just have to, stop and press, the kind of movements that you need. I know the Rams are really advanced with their sports medicine and sports performance departments. They'll have a very good idea what he can and can't do, which makes me wonder whether this is going to extend out. You don't have to take somebody off the IR at the 4-week mark. And I think with that high ankle sprain, they're going to wait till he's absolutely, if not 100%, at least closer. And especially depending, hopefully Akers' situation clears up pretty quickly. Again, that's not an injury. But it's going to be a question of, is he going to make that team better?
Yeah, nothing actionable this week, but a name to monitor if Akers is going to continue to be out and not on the active roster moving forward here. We don't know what's going to happen there. We don't know if this is a 1-week thing or a multiple week thing with Cam Akers for personal reasons, but just a name to monitor with Kieran Williams here. As McVay now has more and more gone away from a bell cow back, and Darrell Henderson isn't built to be a bell cow back. So we'll see what happens there with Kieran Williams. Maybe we get some attractive low numbers on props or anytime touchdowns, or a name maybe you can check out in PPR leagues if you're in a deep league. All right, the Miami Dolphins. I don't know what to make of this. I'm glad we're talking to you about it today because obviously everybody knows Tua's out. Is it your understanding that Teddy Bridgewater did not suffer a concussion in the game last week, and it was just the new protocol that pulled him? Because I still am not clear on this.
Yeah, what we were told at the time is that he did not suffer a concussion. It was the shoulder issue or elbow issue. I don't think they ever even clarified that. He fell on it. But that he had to go into the protocol because of the new regulations. Understandable. I get it. Those are there to help. Everybody agreed to it. But if you don't have the concussion, you should be able to get through the protocol pretty quick, right? If you're not making
just to follow up on that, the new protocol was if you visibly lose balance, right? If you're off balance
ataxia.
And you're axia, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
it's
ataxia.
Ataxia,
which just means not moving.
So that was the reason they pulled him. They later said he didn't have a concussion, but because he fell into this new ataxia category, he's automatically in the concussion protocol?
He's automatically in the protocol. So, again, this is a 4-step protocol. You have to be symptom-free. Then you have to have some activity. Basically, they'll make you work out. You'll run a little bit, get on the bike a little bit, make sure you don't have any more symptoms. Then you'll have a limited practice, no hard contact. No head contact for sure. And then you're checked by the independent neurologist. So if you didn't have a concussion, you shouldn't have symptoms. You shouldn't have problems with those. Are they just taking this slow? Or is this about optics more than it is about actual concussion symptoms? If so, that's kind of undermining the policy. My biggest problem with this whole new policy is that either you're in it or you're not. If it's just about optics, and it's never been that, the NFL's drug policy is about optics. They're not trying to catch anybody. If you get caught, it's more an IQ test than a drug test. Concussion policy has always been relatively serious. Once they took it seriously, they've made small improvements along the way, and I've got to give them credit for that. I just don't think this one was so fully thought out that people are struggling with it. I don't think it's going as intended, and I'm sure they'll tweak it. But this Bridgewater situation is just confusing to all of us. I talked with a Dolphins source who seemed as confused and couldn't give me a whole lot of clarity because he simply didn't know. And this is a person who's in a very good position to know.
Well, now it's a competitive balance issue too, and a competitive fairness issue, because the original spotter said that Bridgewater might have had a concussion because he was off balance. Clearly misinterpreted the ataxia situation, don't you think? I mean, no, I don't know. From the video I saw, he didn't seem like too wobbly or anything.
No, but I think, especially at this stage, the pendulum's going to swing to, over cautiousness. Yeah. I don't think, I don't want to raise any questions of this being rigged or anything.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying a potential just misinterpretation of what they saw with Bridgewater.
Yeah. It's, if you say the punter or some guy on special teams wobbled, that's one thing. But I think, it's one of those subjective issues, unfortunately. We just don't have an objective measure. The NFL has fought having sensors in the helmet, And I kind of agree with that in some ways, but there's just no objective measure. So we have to trust those independent spotters, which are always certified athletic trainers. I'm told they went to 2 now, 1 on each side where possible. I don't know where the second would be on those stadiums that are kind of one-sided. So they are trying. It's not going to be perfect, and it is subjective.
Yeah.
But as a balance issue, I think it's just unlucky that we've had these many situations. We didn't see this in any other games, so hopefully we won't. Hopefully this won't be more of an issue. But I'm very confused with the Dolphins situation. I'm staying away from it almost entirely on both a gambling and a fantasy standpoint, because I just, can we trust what's essentially a third string quarterback? If Bridgewater clears the protocol as expected, and
he can play, he can play,
but
he hasn't practiced. And McDaniel
Yeah.
has said he's probably not going to play if he hasn't practiced all week. So it's looking it's looking like Skylar Thompson.
Exactly. And he looked pretty good, but I'm not going to trust my hard-earned dollars on a third string quarterback.
Honestly, that surprised me. It could be we don't know for sure. It could be some gamesmanship. I was surprised that he'd rather have a practicing Skylar Thompson versus Teddy Bridgewater, who's a seasoned pro in this league, even if he didn't practice this week. That surprised the heck out of me. Personally, just my personal opinion, I'm not totally convinced that Bridgewater clears the protocol and he's backing up Skylar Thompson. That's my opinion. That's why I didn't bet this game.
That makes it even more confusing.
Yeah. I don't know. Just a very weird situation, Will. And I appreciate you spelling it out for us. And, obviously they're trying to do the best they can. They have good intentions to be more cautious with concussions. It's a very serious issue. It's just going to be a shame that sometimes here and there, a guy might lose his balance for some reason completely different than a concussion and possibly be out for the game. And then in the protocol, maybe out for the next game.
Yeah. It's those kind of situations where people are going to have questions. It's going to be frustrating. But in those situations, those guys should come back. The worst they should miss is that game. As I said, the Bridgewater situation.
Yeah, I guess my issue is I don't know why he's in the protocol this week. I guess that's my issue. I don't know why. If he never failed a concussion test.
But if he never failed a concussion test, he shouldn't have concussion symptoms and should have breezed through it in plenty of time.
True. It's fair. Fair enough. Whew, that's the most complicated issue in the NFL. Let's get to some more simpler issues here going into week 6 here.
Can't we have an easy ACL in here somewhere?
Yeah, we gave it. It's a tough one, man. It's new for all of us, so I really appreciate you explaining it. Rashad Bateman for the Baltimore Ravens. This is the second week in a row he's got a midfoot injury. You touched on this last week. How much more concerned are you now that he's missed 2 weeks in a row?
Still concerned, but he was closer. We do get some indications when a guy's running, when a guy's cutting. He just wasn't there yet. Ruling him out this early, I think it's more of a game planning issue. And also the league takes this kind of thing seriously. If a player is believed to be out, you have to designate him by Friday. Otherwise, there's fines if you miss kind of your ratio. I don't think any worse of this injury. I don't think we're looking at a really extended one. I would think he's back next week because we saw enough progress. There's always setbacks. There's always things that just seem to linger. This type of injury usually isn't that.
Sorry about that. I had a pop-up come up as I'm getting up with the rest of the injury information here, but sorry to interrupt. Please go on.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. I think this becomes a week-to-week thing, likely next week. For Lamar Jackson, he did pretty well last week, and he should be a little more used to what he has there. Obviously, Mark Andrews and Devin Duvernay are the guys you're going to look at. They brought in a running back, though, and that one's kind of surprised me.
Yeah, for sure. My fear when I saw that was they're not ready to take the training wheels off J.K. Dobbins yet, coming back from the knee and not playing full snaps and whatnot. So I don't know. Do you see J.K. Dobbins' usage here with, I think he's getting less than 15 touches a game still at this point as part of the normal routine, or any issues or concerns there?
I don't see them, and I'm not hearing them. Talking to Ravens people, they say, no, we like Dobbins. We like all our running backs. I can't off the top of my head remember who it was that they brought in. It was a veteran. What I wonder is whether he's recovering well. Is he really, really sore the next day? Are they having to do more? They're worried about a maintenance program. And so if you do that, you're certainly not going to, as you said, take the training wheels off. You're going to keep him limited. And limitations aren't a bad thing. There are a lot of running backs who can't take 20, 30 carries. There are hardly any running backs who can. So it's a matter of, can they keep him effective week to week to week? And this move worries me just a little bit, gives me a signal that maybe he's not recovering week to week. Maybe he is the kind of guy that's going to wear down, especially as he's really essentially a rookie and learning how to keep his body healthy in this environment.
For sure. I want to circle back to the Cardinals Seahawks game. Tyler Lockett has an issue here this week. He went downgraded on the injury report. That's never a good sign in terms of him being 100% for that week's game. As we look here on the injury report, he was full participant down to limited participant. And because it's a hamstring injury, that gives me even more concern here, Will.
Yeah, especially for a speed guy. And with Lockett, evidently the downgrade was that he pulled up a little bit. He felt it when he was starting to stride out. So that's exactly what he's going to need to do in a game. He had a great game last week, has gelled so well with Geno Smith. You hate to see something like this. It's not a high grade, but if it's one of those that's still catching, that whole catch or tweak usually just means that the scar tissue that's filling in the tear in the muscle is tearing back out. It's never as strong. It's usually 65 to 75% as strong, especially in those early stages, which is why you worry about those recurrent hamstring injuries, those recurrent calf strains. Those are the kind of things where you end up with just bundles of scar tissue, and you certainly don't want that in a speed player. So I am worried about Lockett and wonder how they're going to adjust. With Geno Smith, I just don't have a good read on, how does his game adjust if his favorite receiver is gone, because we frankly haven't seen him play enough.
And they have no depth behind Metcalf and Lockett. I mean, it's former track star Marquise Goodwin.
Yeah,
number 3.
The guy I actually like there is Disley as a tight end. Yeah. He's been catching a lot of tight ends, and that's just kind of red zone luck. But I think they'll have to go to somebody, and you're right. There's no depth. You can't go to Metcalf all day. There's got to be somebody else. I think Disley's. I saw his anytime touchdown was kind of an interesting one early in the week. I don't know if that's changed as much, but he's not a sexy name. Nobody gets really excited about him in the tight end world where it's 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, for sure. Will Disley for a touchdown plus 320 at DraftKings as we record this. So to me, that seems like a pre-Tyler Lockett injury number there for sure.
Yeah.
Considering he's already got 3 on the season too. So the Bengals and the Saints, another game that's been really hard to pull the trigger on a bet because of so many key names with injuries here. Let's start on the Saints side. Jameis Winston is out. It will be Andy Dalton again. That news has just come across. Yep. Michael Thomas is out with a toe injury. Jarvis Landry is also out. Chris Olave, the last of their top 3 receivers, is working his way through the concussion protocol. So I guess we have to wait and see on Olave. It seems like he's been participating, probably going to play here.
The look is that he's going to play. Obviously, with concussion protocol, we never know exactly, but he seemed to have made it through stepwise. He was doing the limited practice, so he's in the last step. A lot of times, teams will wait until the Saturday before, depending on travel, and so I do think he's going to play. But I think this becomes a game script like last week, where it's a lot of running, it's a lot of Taysom Hill. Is Taysom Hill going to have another one of those all-time games? I don't think you can count on that. But I do think you can count on him seeing those packages because right now he's probably their top weapon. I am really, really worried about this Michael Thomas issue. I had doubts coming into the season about whether he could come back from the injuries to his leg, and now he's having injuries seemingly every week. His body just doesn't seem to be able to hold up to it. And I hate to say a guy who's 30 is over the hill. That he's broken down, but he's taking, it's not the year, it's the mileage, they say about cars. So I think he might be one of those high mileage guys. And if he can't figure this out, if the Saints medical staff, solid medical staff, can't figure this out, I don't care. He's flashed some talent He looked pretty good in the preseason, but I just have no confidence he's going to be able to stay healthy. And if he can't, that gets him further down the depth chart and exposes Chris Olave like it did last week. This is a guy who would be a great number 3. I like him better than Landry this year. But if he's the number 1, you've got some pretty big issues, especially if it's Andy Dalton or Taysom Hill throwing the ball.
And then on the flip side, the Bengals have issues. Jonah Williams, their left tackle, is questionable. He was back-to-back DNPs with a knee injury, returned to a limited practice today. Also, T. Higgins did the same thing, back-to-back DNPs, limited practice today. He has an ankle injury. And let's not forget that since the start of last year, Joe Burrow has targeted T. Higgins just as much as he's targeted Jamar Chase. So that is very significant. What do you know? What are your reactions when you hear that a left tackle has a knee injury and a wide receiver has an ankle?
Yeah, with Higgins, I think that is a bigger problem than a lot of people realize. You're like, oh, Jamar Chase is fine. He's got the tight end. The lineman is interesting to me. I mean, Williams is good. He was supposed to be a big part of the upgrade there. That line hasn't gelled yet. And Burrow keeps getting hit, which is certainly problematic. I do think that Burrow is one of those guys who needs 3 or 4 guys out there in the pattern. He's so good at finding the open guy that, if he only has 2 guys, if you're double teaming his 2 or 3 good solid looks, he's going to have problems and get hit because it takes time to get through those progressions. They've got to fix this line. If Williams can't get out there, they're downgrading that. They're mixing it up even further. My friend Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders had some research several years ago talking about how line consistency was one of the things we had to look at, because even if a line was bad but stayed together, they tended to get better. You figure it was cohesion and communication. We've never really figured out the why of that, but I think it's very, very true. Even when you upgrade a line on a talent basis, is it going to gel together? Is it going to work in the scheme? And losing Williams really worries me. I honestly would take, this is going to sound extreme, I'd take a point off the Bengals on this, because anytime you're losing a left tackle, anytime you're the blindside tackle, really, really difficult.
Yeah, fair enough. This line's sitting at 2 right now, 2.5 at one spot at FanDuel. That's up a little bit from close to a pick earlier in the week, but yeah, I mean, I share those concerns. I think on paper, you think, the Bengals will be fine. They went to the Super Bowl last year. They're playing the Saints, who have a lot of injuries, and Andy Dalton is only going to have Chris Olave. But Joe Burrow was number 1 in completion percentage over expectation last year. He's number 18 this year.
Yeah,
he hasn't shown it yet. He's struggling with getting the ball out, finding receivers, and T. Higgins being out and his left tackle being compromised is another big reason to be nervous about the Bengals this week as well. Let's get to some quarterbacks here. Just briefly before we hit on Dak Prescott to close things up, just Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield with these high ankle sprains.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield obviously out. Mac Jones, I haven't said it officially. Saw some of that, grainy long-range video of him. People were saying, look at how much hardware he has on his leg. He did have his normal knee brace, a lead leg prophylactic brace, like we've seen on Tom Brady, 100 other quarterbacks. But he did appear to have a big, thick tape job, maybe a brace underneath the tape. Couldn't tell. That wouldn't be unusual. So even with him moving a little bit better than last week, well, he was basically stationary last week when we saw him at this point in practice. I just can't see him being successful again this week, especially with Zappe being good. I think this is a situation much like Prescott. If your backup is playing well, it's not necessarily quarterback controversy. It's more time to heal up. Yep. And I think they're taking advantage of that, or should take advantage of that as well as Zappe's played. So I don't think Jones is going to be out there this week. It would stun me if he were, and I would back off everything Patriots if he did, because that would be a bad decision, unless they just know something we don't. I don't think that's the case. With Mayfield, this one's going to be multiple weeks, so it'll be interesting to see how P.J. Walker does down there. I'm not as low on him as some of your guys. He's always been adequate. And we'll see whether or not Steve Wilkes can kind of rally the troops. I personally think they're going to hand it to Christian McCaffrey and see what they have this week. Is he still a guy who can create? Is he still a guy who can put up huge numbers every week? I think so. He doesn't seem to have lost a step or a move from his injuries, but you've got to use him, or you've got to get something back for him. I know there's rumblings that the Bills and a couple other teams were inquiring. If you could get a haul for a guy like that, and that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, as good as he is, having a high-priced running back is not a good start for a rebuild situation, for sure. I agree with you on that. Okay, Dak Prescott. It's going to be Cooper Rush on Sunday night against the Eagles. We know that. Seems like Dak is really close, though, from what I've been seeing and hearing. His receivers say he's got good zip on the ball. So why isn't he playing this week, and how close is he, in your opinion?
He's extremely close. I thought there was a very good chance he was going to play this week. Earlier in the week when he started throwing, you heard those reports. I had a Cowboys source tell me he looked normal. What they're worried about is that he just doesn't have good control of the ball. I wish I had a ball here I could demonstrate. You saw that Minnesota play at the end of their game where they just basically stripped the ball out.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand what goes on in some of those piles, or you get those punches that the so-called
it's not
peanut
friendly.
punch. No.
It's not a friendly gathering.
If you don't think they'll reach in there and grab somebody's thumb, I don't think it'd be intentional. I mean, they know it, but I've done studies in hockey where people say we only say upper body or lower body because we don't want to target. You can't think that fast. Get the ball. Doesn't matter whether this guy's had a thumb injury or not. You're just trying to get the ball. So I think it's one more week for Dak. They wanted him back. They wanted him back bad for the Eagles game because they know how big this is. But I think Cooper Rush has built some credibility and confidence. He's played really well. The team has played okay. The one I'm watching there is the receiver. CeeDee Lamb he got banged up last week. Michael Gallup still didn't look all the way back. You could see him favoring the one side on cuts. And they just don't have anything behind that. Schultz had an issue with his knee again. He had a bit of a setback with PCL, which usually just means you just tore out all the scar. You're back to where you were with that grade 1 PCL, which isn't going to help him. That team is just wearing down, and I'm really curious to see how they're going to deal with that. Traumatic injuries like what Prescott had, those are going to happen. There's nothing you can do about that. When you're getting worn down, again, talked about this with the 49ers, you're going to give up some preventive work. There's just only so many hours in the day in the medical staff.
Any concern with Micah Parsons here? I mean, I think it was a surprise to some of us when he didn't play full snaps last week. He still had a couple of sacks, but a groin for a pass rusher.
Yeah, I mean, same thing as Nick Bosa. This is an uncommon, especially on turf. So I think they're going to limit him in. But man, when he was in there, he looked pretty good. He was obviously playing through pain. One of the things I always watch for when you're watching the tape back, you'll see a guy like that who is limping back to the huddle, limping off to the sidelines. But you get in the game, and they're just flying out there. It's those guys that are kind of the crazy ones. They can just compartmentalize that pain and deal with it and go at near full go. Now, they are at a higher risk for re-injury. Didn't appear to happen. He was pretty consistent throughout the game. He had limited practices throughout the week, but I think he's going to play about what he did last week. Plus, I don't know the kid. He seems like an adrenaline player. Those kind of guys, if you can keep them within range and not going nuts, they get up for big games. And for a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts, having a crazy mobile guy like Micah Parsons is going to be a problem.
Now that you've got the injury breakdown on this game with the Cowboys situation, you can check out what our staff thinks of the handicapping situation with this one. Both Eli and Mo talked about this on Beat the Closing Line earlier this week. You can find that on our podcast feed and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheLinesUS if you're watching us on Twitter right now. And also the Megapod. We talked about this game at length as well, as more professional money has come in yet again on the Eagles, as we've seen from the start of last year. There's a big bet on team in the Philadelphia Eagles, and this line has moved from 4.5 up to 6.5 now for Sunday Night Football against Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to do it for this week's injury podcast from thelines.com. For Will Carroll, my name is Steven Andress. Thanks so much for watching. Best of luck in week number 6.